Well, members of the public tackling antisocial behaviour. Let's have a bit of a talk about this. I'm joined from Central London by Nathan John, an entrepreneur who works with young people, and by John Tully from the Metropolitan Police Federation. Thank you both, gentlemen, for joining us. Nathan John, if I can start with you first. It sounds like a great idea, but what's your vision? How can you see this actually being implemented? Our reporter there talked about street cleaners, shopkeepers and teachers. Is that the way you think it would go?
I'm in favour of the idea because I think it's about time that as a community we step up and stand together, because by sitting on the sidelines we're seeing what young people and other individuals are getting involved in, and we need to find ways to work together to prevent that from happening. I do think this training that's being offered is one of those solutions that are required.
Is it being offered, John Tully?
Well, I'm unsure about that. I think the RSA have suggested that people are encouraged to receive training. Paul McKeever said in your piece earlier that the police service aren't placed at the moment because of the cuts to budgets and reductions in manpower to actually provide that training. So I think it's a very, very fine balance, because what we don't want is vigilante groups, and what we don't want is have-a-go heroes putting themselves at risk when it in fact should be the police service that are dealing with these problems.
Nathan John, I mean, listed there were self-protection and restraint, how to read a situation, conflict resolution. That's all quite powerful stuff, and that takes quite a long time to learn, and to implement requires a certain character of person and a certain level of training. Isn't there a fear that local members of the community get exposed to a little bit of this training and then people rely on them to fix the problems?
You know, I would advise against anyone going up for this and thinking that they can intervene in any situation, because actually there are some antisocial behaviour that, you know, I wouldn't advise anyone other than the police force to deal with. So, you know, we have to be clear that, you know, this isn't the serious violent stuff. And if you look at the riots, you'd have to be a real brave person to really try to step in at that point. But I think if we can go a step back and try to go to the root cause of the conflict and train individuals in that area, in mediation and dealing with kind of supporting people, talking through their problems, I think there we're starting to find the core of this idea, that I think maybe that they're more thinking about how can we as a community truly connect with individuals and prevent things from taking place, not actually just stepping in when they are, because that's dangerous.
John Tully, it's something that a large proportion of the public think about a lot, is what would I do in certain situations if there was a scenario where it presented itself where maybe I could make a difference, I could make things better. But that can be very dangerous. I mean, that lady we saw in the report from Hackney, you know, maybe she was just extremely lucky diving in and starting to tell people what she thought. It's a dangerous business and a difficult decision, surely, this intervention idea.
Absolutely, and even police officers, when they undergo their training, are told to dynamically risk assess any situation that they may come across. And without any of that police-style training, that members of the public should think very, very seriously before they got involved in any such situation, which would put themselves and potentially others at risk. I think Nathan is right, because we need to look not just at the people who actually perform the antisocial behaviour. We need to look at society in general. We need to look at parenting. We need to look at the individuals and put them on the right track, as well as maintaining the police numbers that we need to have a safe and secure street.
So, Nathan John, exposure to these kinds of methods, if you like, better if it's part of a more holistic group discussion in a community, really.
Most certainly. My organisation, Youth Enlightenment Limited, have been working with the Nathaniel Peake's company, Safety Bots, for a number of years, and almost about 5 years, about how do we train individuals, how do we inspire, how do we motivate, and it's a range of different things, and it takes schools, parents, the police, local government, businesses truly coming together, and we've delivered projects where we have worked together and we've all made a unique contribution, and those projects are far more effective than when we're working in siloed and we're just not really making a difference. But when we come together, it's powerful. They say unity is strength.
So Nathan John, where does the support come from members of a community who want to tackle this, start bringing other members of the community in? Where does that support come from outside? From funding, from legislation? How does it get to them?
I mean, that's a challenging question. I think it comes from a range of different things. I think it could even start from someone looking at their own community and saying, what contribution can I make? That's what I did 5 years ago. You know, I was working in the city, life was fairly good, but I saw issues and I said, I want to make a contribution in my own way. And I think that's a starting point. Or looking at local charities, there's always a need for volunteers. As we're seeing in the games, volunteers can really make a difference and make something a success. So it's looking at the provision in place at the moment and seeing how you can contribute or what ideas you have. But it's not going to happen overnight, and I can see that in this current climate, funding is going to be an issue, and there is a lot of work that individual can't just do. We need the police force to be robust. We need the government to be responsive. It's something we all need to do together in unison.
Well, that said, John Tully, of course, one worrying element of this is that in the discussion of this sort, we often hear the other thing being mentioned, which is that police forces are being cut, that there may be fewer officers on the streets, and this is in some way a kind of quasi-replacement for not enough officers being around, and that's a worry, isn't it?
It most certainly is a worry. I mean, this year already, across England and Wales in particular, we've lost upwards of 6,000 police officers. And with the Metropolitan Police Service, who I represent, have a black hole in their budget of 230 million this year and 500 million next year. And all they have to cut is police numbers and police staff. So it is only going to get worse. We are going to lose officers and police staff. Replacing those trained people with volunteers who have little or no training except their own volition is a very dangerous situation. And I would call upon the government to think very long and hard before they implement the rest of their cuts programme in policing in general.
John Tully, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Our thanks also to Nathan John as well this afternoon.